Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Gentlemen Prefer Cinephiles. I can't believe it's been a whole month, Nick.
Neither can I.
I'm so excited.
I can't believe I survived.
You survived 4 whole episodes. Are you ready to re-sign your contract?
Okay, we'll talk after the episode. We're negotiating. Even though you're my manager.
I'm negotiating with myself.
You're my manager. You're my producer. You're everything.
Oh my god, this is so cool.
So it's like, I'll have to talk with the 3 U's.
Yeah, I'm gonna split myself into 3 entities, and then Nick's gonna negotiate a contract out with them, and then he'll be back next Saturday.
Yeah. Shit.
Right? Yeah. Damn it.
God, you're good.
You got me. So I'm pretty excited because we have some super exciting stuff coming up for August, but this is an episode that I've been wanting to do for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just took a Italian cinema class, and it's just the spaghetti western is so important to the Italian cinema, to Italian cinema in general,
to the western in general. I mean,
100%.
It changed the landscape of western.
It changed so much, and it changed so much cinematically too. And I wanted to do an episode on it because it's something that not a lot of people talk about either. The spaghetti western genre.
Well, they don't understand it, or they're not familiar with it. They've never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking a while back. I was chatting with a friend of mine, a young lady who I love hanging out with, and we were. Don't start that. You'll never hear this.
Oh no! Just kidding.
Her and I were chatting, and then she was asking about the podcast, because I was just getting ready to start doing it. We were planning out our episodes, and I think we were talking, and I told her, I was like, we're going to do military, and then we'll do this love story series. I'm like, then we'll do spaghetti westerns, and she said, what exactly is spaghetti western? Because she's like, I just imagine, like spaghetti noodles with cowboy hats on and guns chasing.
That's not far off.
And me being a smart ass, I was like, no, you're exactly right. I was like, the noodles are the cowboys, the meatballs are the Indians, the Parmesan is the confused onlookers or the city folk. I started making, and then
I love that. Can we make that into an actual thing?
But she's on to me right away. So I'm just like, okay, so here's what it is. And so I started talking about, Sergio Leone and the Django pictures and stuff, and I know you're going to put a stop to this Django stuff because we were talking in Django. Of course, we say Django, and everyone they know right away. Like, oh God, I know what you're talking about, and they automatically think Jamie Foxx, Django Unchained, right? And that's what they get into. But then, as you'll see, we'll get into it later on. We'll talk about the original Django. Where did Django come from? And then we find out that there are only actually a couple films that are truly credited, and we can get into, and you most likely learned about this in your Italian film course, is just how loose film right laws were in Italy specifically, and just how so many people got away with the spoofing and spinning off the Django genre.
It almost turns into Shaft, where there are so many of them that you just don't realize that there are.
Yeah, there's only the original as far as I'm concerned.
I only thought there was one, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, there's 700?
I'm more about, I'm a huge fan of blaxploitation films.
I love blaxploitation.
I absolutely love it. I love Shaft. I love Black Dynamite. I mean, they're all set. That would be another episode we can talk blaxploitation.
That's a good, oh my God, yes. We could bring my friend Stefan on. He just taught a whole section of a class on Cleopatra Jones.
Okay.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, such good films. It's really good. It's good cinema. It's not bad at all. I love the action, and I think it's one of those areas where you get really good dialogue.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because it's like, what were we talking about? We were talking about last week.
True Romance
and Tarantino, and just how the dialogue is so epically real. And this, that kind of happens in these blaxploitation films. Because it's a real deal. This is what was going on in these areas and how people were talking.
This is how it is.
And that's what I love when that reality is brought to film.
Yes, it's so important to get those alternate perspectives on reality too. So,
absolutely.
Okay, so the spaghetti western, to kind of go into the name of it, it's called spaghetti western. It's a subgenre of western movies, and it comes from Italy. Hence the name spaghetti western.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was coined by I think I want to say a Spanish film critic or something that coined the term. And I think actually I was reading up on it, and in Japan they call it macaroni films.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
And Japan, but over in Asia, those have been one of the areas that have exploited the Django.
Loved the genre.
They exploited the Django name. They have like Sukiyaki Django and such.
Yes.
I was looking up some really creative Django names.
I love that.
I will get into it when
we need to do like a whole watch episode, like
I know
us watching through all of the Django movies. I saw Nick just panic in his eye.
I was like, wow, all of them? I don't know.
Erynn, I don't know if I want to.
Some of them are incredible.
I'm your manager. We're watching. No, I'm just kidding.
Not time.
Pulling the producer card. Just kidding.
I know my rights.
You're like, wait a minute. Do I need a lawyer now?
Yeah, I'm calling the Screen Actors Guild. This is bullshit.
I'm calling Zach. What is this? Going into spaghetti western, there are two techniques specifically that I'm going to point out in Tarantino's Django, because if you're not very familiar with the spaghetti western, you may not know that Tarantino's Django Unchained, it was pulled from a spaghetti western series by the name Django.
Yes.
And that genre, that film series had a strong hand in one second. That film series had a strong hand in defining the genre, but I would say it's pretty much Sergio Leone's genre. I'm just gonna say that. We'll get into that in a minute.
Absolutely, because if you look at it, if you look at like when the films were coming out, Django really capitalized off what Sergio Leone had created.
Yeah.
He arguably threw down like a couple of the greatest westerns we've ever seen. And specifically his third one in the series. I'm a huge fan of the second one in the series as well.
Yeah.
I think it's equally
so good.
Is epic, but the third one's better, and I'm excited to get into him. I love him so much, but I agree with you. You're absolutely right. Chronologically, Sergio Leone started releasing in 64, then came again in 65, then nailed us again in 66. And then after they saw that, that's when Franco Nero was just like, let's do this Django guy.
Let's do Django.
And he makes this neat piece of Django, and so that's kind of where it came from. And so Tarantino's good because there's a lot of things from original Django that he translates over to Jamie Foxx.
And Tarantino is one of those creators that is very open about his look at spaghetti westerns, and so I think Tarantino he's perfect to look at because he pays a lot of respect to the genre. So that's why I'm using him as this example. So kind of three things with Tarantino. So very first and foremost, Tarantino using Ennio Morricone for scores is just inherently pulling from spaghetti western, because Ennio Morricone was responsible for a lot of the early scores that defined the western genre.
He was Sergio Leone's tag team partner.
I can't believe he just got an Oscar for Hateful Eight.
The four films that he did with Sergio Leone solidified him. I mean, it's arguably some of the best score you've ever heard in film, and we'll get into it to drill down just the
specific ones and all that stuff. The
elements of the score and how they work with the film and how they draw what emotions they draw out.
And it's almost too. It's the Western genre is very interesting to me because it's a traditionally American genre. I see it as,
absolutely.
But
John Ford.
100%. But seeing how how non-Americans define the genre, I love that a lot, and how they contributed. So then another technique in Django that's traditionally spaghetti western, they're there at the Cleopatra Club. Calvin Candy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is being introduced. Yes. He's sitting on the couch. He turns around. The camera does a hard zoom in on him. That's spaghetti western all the way.
Oh yeah,
spaghetti western all the way, and it's one of the most. It's one of the most, I guess, quirky, little things about the genre that just wrap it up in a big package.
It's so fun too, though, because Franco Nero, the original Django, is in the room. He's in the room when we meet Calvin Candy.
What is the line? He goes, "I'm Django."
No, because Django, Jamie Foxx goes up to the bar and they're looking at each other. And Franco Nero's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Django," and he's like, "How do you spell that?" And he says, "DJANGO." The D is silent. And then Franco Nero looks at him, he's like, I know. And
it's it's such a good moment.
Yeah, if no one knows and that's Franco Nero, who is the original Django. When Corbucci made the first Django film back in 1966, Franco Nero was the guy. And then the only other official Django film that we'll talk about, Django Strikes Again in 87, 21 years later. It was Franco Nero collaborating with Corbucci, but I always found that part so funny because it's It's the same as when you're watching Kill Bill, and if you don't know who Sonny Chiba is. And if you know nothing about Sonny Chiba, you're like, who is this guy behind the bar?
Here?
Who we find out is Hattori Hanzo, right? But the way he carries on and the way the interactions he has with this guy in the back and the language and the way he talks, it's incredibly Sonny Chiba. If anyone's ever seen Street Fighter 2, Son of Street, all these different Street Fighter films, if you've ever seen The Executioner 1 and 2, all Sonny Chiba, it's all him. And it's so fun that you have that. But now in this one, you have Franco Nero, and he's like, the D is silent. I know.
And just those little details, as a filmmaker, as like somebody who wants to be a filmmaker, all that stuff, that's just ultimate. I think Tarantino is like the poster child for all your dreams coming true.
Oh,
because you grow up watching all these movies, and then all of a sudden, like, Franco Nero's in your movie after you watched him all the time. I can't imagine that.
And that's what, it's just another one of those reasons that, I think so many people appreciate what Tarantino does, because he takes stuff that's really, it's special, it's significant to film, it's extremely significant to cinema, and oftentimes, as we discussed, like with spaghetti westerns and other stuff, it's forgotten about. It's not really talked about because sometimes, like we were talking about, the Americanized western, and we'll be able to talk about plenty of films, American-wise, that come in this traditional western. We really forget about some of these just exceptional filmmakers, exceptional actors. It's so nice to have someone that's such a purist.
Yes.
To bring it back in and still give it to us, despite what anybody said. I mean, if you're Tarantino, what can anyone say to you?
No, 100%. Yeah. Well, because he's so respectful to the genre. He's respectful to film history. He's so respectful to It's just so. But yeah, another example in Django, the Tarantino one.
Yes.
So Django, they're about to whip that girl for dropping eggs or something.
Yes.
And he walks up, and then he's looking at all the men. All the men are looking at him. It goes from wide shots and slowly gets closer and closer till it's just eyes. That's another straight up Western. I don't know how much we'll talk about this one specifically today, but that's pulled directly from Once Upon a Time in the West. But we're going to be focused more on Sergio Leone and like the trilogy. But Once Upon a Time in the West is another one.
Yes, and then when the stance that you see Django take when they take the shot, that's directly out of For a Few Dollars More.
Yes.
When you have Clint Eastwood with the duster and just standing there, they frame Django the exact same way. And then one of the greatest lines, I like the way you die, boy.
Yeah, oh my God, yes, queen.
It's just,
love that.
It's one of those ones. We had our talk, what was it, like 2 weeks ago? We had a little chat about Hateful Eight, didn't we?
I love Hateful Eight. I still unabashedly, Hateful Eight is my favorite movie.
Yes, I was giving you credit about
It's about to be Once Upon a Time in the West. Oh, no, it's about to be, not Once Upon a Time in the West. It's about to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though.
Which I think that's going to be a really cool film. Seeing the Tate LaBianca murder from a completely different angle through a new lens. And it's great. It's almost like you're seeing Day of the Locust again.
Yes.
It's almost like you're seeing The Player again.
Don't even talk to me about Day of the Locust.
I'm just saying, Locust,
that's an episode.
Locust, The Player. We're getting this really killer meta film from Hollywood. And that's just, that's what's so fun
obsessed.
Because, if you could, honestly, like if we sat down, me and you, and I was like, Erynn, if you could pick one director to talk shit and make a meta film about Hollywood, who would it be?
Tarantino.
It would be like Tarantino.
Tarantino.
And some asshole would probably be like, Michael Bay, and you'd just kill him.
Oh, yeah, Michael Bay. What's his name? Oh my God. Who did the Grinch? Who did the Grinch, Evelyn? Oh my God. No. Michael Bay. Ron Howard.
Oh God.
What?
Ron Howard made like one of my favorite films though.
What film?
So he did
The Grinch?
I'm a huge no, I hate The Grinch. The only Grinch I can watch is the original one.
Fair, yeah.
And on Christmas. Otherwise, you can take all the other Grinches and shove them up your ass. Okay. But no, he made this film. I'm a huge fan of Formula One racing. German listeners will get this because Germany's the home to like arguably the greatest Formula One driver of all time.
Oh yeah,
7-time champion Michael Schumacher. But I absolutely love Formula One racing. And years ago there was this incredible rivalry between James Hunt and Niki Lauda. James Hunt, the Britishman, Niki Lauda, the Austrian. it's just such an incredible.
Is that
film.
one with Hemsworth? Is this that one?
Yeah.
Oh, what is it called?
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth plays James. I think it's called Rush.
Rush. Yeah.
And it's a Formula One racing movie, and they show how Niki Lauda went through his burns. Niki Lauda actually did pass away earlier this year.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
He had actually, Niki Lauda's an older guy. He worked with the Mercedes team, and Mercedes is right now the most successful team in Formula One for the time being, because they just changed every so many years. Formula One changes their regulations for the cars, and since we've been in this 1.6 liter turbo era of the current F1 car, Mercedes is just dominated. But Niki Lauda was right there with Toto Wolff, who's the team principal, always in the pits. So you would see Niki every weekend. He always had a red hat on, and when he had passed away, they had such a touching tribute to him, because everybody had these red hats with Niki on them, and everyone in the crowds and everything was wearing. But truly an amazing guy.
I don't know anything about Formula One racing. I'm going to cry.
You can watch Rush, but I mean, it's Niki Lauda is arguably one of the, with the exception of like Sir Jackie Stewart, arguably like one of the most fair, gentlemanly racers ever. Just guy went out there just to drive, and it was so pure. And Howard does such a good job capturing that. But we went off on it. I know a lot.
I pick on Ron Howard a lot, so
a lot of
good.
Ron Howard films, because he did like the Da Vinci Code and things like that, and you're saying,
whoa, don't bring the Da Vinci Code into this. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, there's a lot of things he did, but I just know that was definitely that's one Ron Howard film that sticks out to me.
Yeah,
I could watch any day. And it's an incredible piece. And it's just because Ron Howard's a huge Formula One fan.
Oh, okay. Love that. I had no idea. I get that from Ron Howard. He kind of looks like he'd be a Formula.
I defend him, I help Opie.
That's okay.
I helped him.
Gotta help RH.
But yeah,
Ron Howard needed it. Yeah, I pick on him a lot. So,
but I mean, I love the highlights that you had. I think it's good because all the films that we're going to talk about from here on are from the past. But it's always good you got to throw Django in there, specifically when we get into talking about the exploitation and such. But even more so, I just love how you point out how he captures his ode to the spaghetti western. As we were saying, like the quick, fast close up on the guy
100%.
and the poses that individuals strike, and just the manner it goes on, and even more so the gunplay. I think the gunplay is a huge part.
The Django, like the flipping the gun around or whatever.
Yes, and just the brutality of it as well.
Yeah.
Because when we got into spaghetti westerns, American westerns, everyone here in the States growing up on westerns, we grew up on John Ford. It seemed every single western was something directed by John Ford, had John Wayne in it, had who I talked about last time, Victor McLaughlin from Quiet Man, playing a sergeant. But I mean, we were introduced to like Stagecoach, and that Stagecoach blew us away. I mean, we had seen some early John Wayne westerns, like The Man from Utah and stuff. Early stuff when he was young, but Stagecoach was the one.
Well, and The Searchers is all the film people's favorite.
The Searchers is a big one. I mean, Stagecoach took us away because of just the massive expanse of the shot and how they could capture when the coach gets into the clearing, and they have to get so far down to get the help from the army and such. And you're watching Indians coming from all directions. It's really incredible. But we were always so used to, cowboys, Indian. The good guy, the rancher, the cowboy, the horseman, the John Wayne type. And then you would have the bad guys were always like the Indians or maybe like a land person greedy for land. There was always the female, the damsel in distress. But it always kind of routed around the same way where it was like, the clear good and then like who we vilify and the female. But it never really got sketchy or risky or anything.
Yeah.
It was always the interaction that went on, the only killing that went on and such was just between, like, bad guys would be kind of singular, or they would like beat a ranch hand out of town or send him out, or like a land baron, that's what I was looking for. They would just kind of get him to shoo off or go away, or maybe would end up dead, and then it's all happy at the end and stuff. And the only like real other violence coming in would be, them vilifying Native Americans, and they would have Indians attacking from all directions, shooting and this and that. So it was always that same theme. And then even more so, the scores started to become the same, because like when you listen to Sons of Katie Elder, you can start attaching it to other Westerns films, and you're just like, sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And you can hear it in the background, just go, oh, it's this one, and then realize it's complete. But we got into that traditional piece of just cowboys and this and that, where we get into spaghetti western.
Yeah.
Now we're taking a completely different dynamic. And our characters, the great thing about it is specifically Sergio Leone films, when you get into them, your protagonist is such a mystery.
Yeah.
You have no clue. It's just, and that's what's so cool about the Man with No Name series is this guy just wanders into town and mischief starts.
No name.
And you're trying to put it together. And
Yeah.
that's another one where like the second one in the series is so brilliant, just the way it comes together, the way the story works. But that's,
and
that's
the
why
spaghetti western as a genre is always so interesting to me because, you know, the one thing that really stands out to me in terms of genre study, because, you know, compared to the gangster film, compared to any other genre, spaghetti western is really defined by the little details.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the little technical details really define the spaghetti western, and it's a genre unlike any other in that way, I think.
Because it sticks away from those common things we're seeing, like, you know, in the Ford films, like we see interaction.
Yeah.
Then it goes to like these panning shots and music, and it's like
There's a mesa.
And it's just
there's a horse.
But the music doesn't. The score doesn't really have an edge to it. It doesn't grab you. It's one of those ones you feel like you can just trump along, right?
Yeah.
You know, you would enjoy it. But then you get into like Sergio Leone, and you get this stuff that's got grit, it's got an edge to it.
Let's do it, because I think it's interesting that your favorite is the second one, because my favorite is Fistful of Dollars. And then Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is just so good. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to hear. You're saying you like Fistful of Dollars.
I love Fistful of Dollars.
And I think it's the greatest intro.
Yeah.
I absolutely love, and this is what I was just talking about. The protagonist, such a mystery.
Yeah.
This guy comes in to town. He sees shit going on both sides. You know, and he's like, "What's going on in this town?" And they're like, "They do that. They do that."
Yeah.
And he just rolls up. He's like, "Hey."
And he could be as bad as all the other guys,
and he keeps going back and forth between these two families, collecting money, just stirring the pot.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're sitting there going, who is this guy? Who the hell is this guy? He just rolls in.
Why is this guy so invested?
But then you get to see a sadistic villain. We're not talking about, you know, the villains that we see in John Ford films. We're not talking about those type of villains.
Oh, yeah.
We're just like, you know, a little mouthing off and everything. Now we're seeing a barbaric.
It's no longer really like
villain.
Vilifying. It's not like vilifying Native Americans.
Well, no,
you know,
now,
it's
now
like an
just,
actual.
They're
like,
taking a person.
Yeah, 100%.
They're just taking a person, and they're just like, yeah, this guy may be of Hispanic descent or such. But
it doesn't reflect on, like, you know what I mean? Like that's what my thing is.
Because all the other people in his gang, he has white guys in his gang, he has other Hispanic guys in his gang. There's such a mix in it. We're just introduced to villain. It's not a Native American. It's not a land bear. It's a villain.
It's a villain, and it's an actual character. Yeah, and I think that just by nature of no one having names it's very interesting technically to me, because I mean, I'm sure you know this from a writer's perspective, but like, you generally speaking, when you don't give somebody a name, it's because they're like a blank slate character in a way to attach. So it prevents you from attaching to them in the same way you would if they had a name.
They're like an extra. They're like they're a pair of shoes.
Yeah. So it's very interesting on that level too, that everyone from, you know, until you get to the Good, Bad, and the Ugly. But Fistful of Dollars, like, I don't think anybody has a name really.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, nobody.
And so
really,
you're just everything's just washing over you.
Like, we know who the families are, and we know who our villain is. You know, because they're like, oh, when he gets back, you know, you better be careful. But I think that's the fun dynamic of it. You have this mischievous protagonist, and you're sitting here just going, you know, wait, it's a Western, you know, this guy's got to do some good. There's got to be something that's going to happen, you know. Is he going to like save any women? He's going to rescue some, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
He just keeps outplaying these people who are morally and ethically just so distraught and going along with it just so he can collect money.
Yes.
You know, and you're just
yes.
Just kind of like, this dude rolled into town, saw an opportunity to collect money, and was just like, go. But he has to be our good guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another thing that's really interesting with this in terms of, you know, American cinema and American genre is a huge subgenre of American film is the idea that, like, you know, you roll up to a rural town, everyone's fucking crazy. You know, and I think in a lot of ways that's rooted in, you know, things like Fistful of Dollars, because I think the reason I like the trilogy, but particularly Fistful of Dollars so much, is it's so simple.
Yes.
He just walks right in, a little kid starts screaming, he's like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden he's in it.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, you got like the guy running the bar is like, just get out of here, man. Just leave. Don't stay here. And as soon as he finds where money is, he doesn't even knock on their door or anything. He's standing out there. He's like, hey, I hear you're hiring men. I'll see you tomorrow. You know, and it's like, you're hiring me no matter what. And just, it's neat how it goes back and forth. And I love the introduction of the new villain because the same gentleman who played the villain in Fistful of Dollars plays the villain again and for a few dollars more. Yeah. But of course, there's no relation between the films.
Because it's almost like they're all three like different worlds.
They're different. They're different people, and we get into, you know, for a few dollars more, and now you have Clint Eastwood, and I love the trifecta, how we get it. Like in the first film, we get just Clint Eastwood. Yeah. Then the second one, we get Clint Eastwood and then Lee Van Cleef. Yeah. And Lee Van Cleef is just
so excellent.
Angel.
And can I just say, I just need to get on a woman's soapbox really quick.
Here we go. Boy, I'm going to hear about Van Cleef's dimples, aren't I?
Oh, no, you're not. You're about to hear about Clint Eastwood.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right.
My lady
Guys,
parts,
grab your coffee. Ladies, grab a bubble bath.
Ladies, you know.
Erin's about ready to speak.
My lady parts are so offended by you, Clint Eastwood, because you're fucking crazy, but you are so hot.
How do lady parts get offended? Did they text you?
Yeah, they just, you know, they're just ping. They hit me up one day. They gave me a call.
Hey, what's going on? Just hanging out down here.
How you feeling about Clint Eastwood?
Guy pisses me off.
Right? They're like, he's just so attractive, but what the fuck is that chair video?
We're doing everything we can to hold back down here. Right? Get your brain to get your shit together.
Yeah, me literally watching Fistful of Dollars 100%. Yeah, straight up. Yeah, that's my soapbox. Okay. I'm off of it now.
And I say it's so fun because you end up with Clint Eastwood, then you get introduced to Van Cleef. Yeah. And then you get introduced to our Eli Wallach in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Yes. I love Eli Wallach. He's great, but Fistful of Dollars, I mean, it's very good. For a few dollars more, though,
Yes, go into a few dollars more.
Let's go into it for a few dollars more, because this is honestly, it's a story I really, I love the story, and mostly it's because of the ending. But in this time, like I said, the villain is the same gentleman, right? But now it's taken to a completely new level. Yeah. Like we thought we saw just how violent or how just radical a villain
and crazy
could be. Yeah. But now in this one, we find out that like the only close thing this guy has ever had to love is when he raped a woman and murdered her husband. Ugh. You know, and now he carries her locket around. And then there's this really cool dynamic of, you know, how he challenges people. He'll open the locket and he'll be like, when the music stops. Yeah. You know, and when the music stops, they go for their guns. And that's like how he guns men down. Oof. And then, but it's fun. I love the split bounty system where you have these, because now, you know, our man with no name, Clint Eastwood, we find out he's a bounty hunter. And we get introduced to Lee Van Cleef, who we find is another exceptional bounty hunter. And if you'd seen Good, Bad, and the Ugly before this, you're looking at it just going, oh God, these guys are going to butt heads. They don't like each other. Yeah. But in this film, their dynamic's incredible because they work with each other, and the way they collect their bounties is so much fun. I love I love some of the shootouts. I love when he's counting his bounty as he's throwing guys into the truck, and then you think one's going to shoot him, and he's like, ah. And
that's just so good.
Lee Van Cleef looks back. He's like, everything all right? He's like, thought my math was wrong. I'm okay now.
One thing I appreciate about Spaghetti Western, too, is how even keel everyone is when they're battling. Yes. Because one thing that makes me laugh out loud, like, I love John Ford, don't get me wrong, I love John Ford movies, but, like, it just makes me laugh how, like, you hear the natives shooting, it's like, pew, pew, yeah. And then, like, John Wayne is one shot, is like, push, whoa. Yeah, that's, you know,
What's cool about these films as well is that you mentioned at the beginning Ennio Morricone. right?
Yes.
The scores get progressively better as you go, because
and the scores define them.
In Fistful of Dollars, it's simple. Like, and you said it with the film, it's very simple. We have our one guy, we have Clint Eastwood just now, but now when we get into For a Few Dollars More, you notice this big difference in the score, this uptick, and specifically when they're capturing the gunfights and such, we get this just brand new, I don't know how to put this, auditory pleasure, I guess. We get this whole new awakening because we hear it in A Fistful of Dollars, and we're like, that's pretty good, and you want more. And then you get into For a Few Dollars More, and you get an even better score, and now it's more bountiful as well. It's more involved in the film, you know, and I the reason that I it's right there. I think The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the triumph. I mean, but For a Few Dollars More, I hold it up there so well because I love the ending. I love when, you know, he starts it and he's at the end of the music, and then you have Lee Van Cleef and you have Clint Eastwood. They both have the same lockets, with the same pictures in it, and you're just kind of going,
you're like, what the fuck?
And then you find, you know, you're finding out who the woman that was raped and the boy that was murdered. You're finding out they're related to these guys, and you know, but he leaves it to Angel Eyes because it was his daughter, you know, and it's so good when the story hits that. Like, you're sitting there and you're thinking, once again, it's just gonna be like, let the music play. But then with the score, and then when they cut it out, and you get to the other, you get to the lockets, and you're kind of going, wait, and then they start doing the flashbacks, and you're starting to realize, you're like, what the fuck? You're like, oh my god, that's why, and then you're just like, and you're realizing just what a sick bastard this guy is, but then you're realizing how vengeful these two men are, these bounty hunters, and it's like, you are going to die, you're going to pay for what you've done, and even though they know it, at least it puts it to rest there. So I think for the story, that's one of the reasons I really put it up there.
Coming from Fistful of Dollars, where, you know, you get set up this scenario in which, you know, you don't really learn anything about the characters. It's all like compact. It's almost like an expanded one room movie, you know, where it's like, you know, one location and then it's over. But so you set up that idea, and you almost think it might turn out like the Django movies, where they're like little, you know, stories, and each one is different. But, you know, when you get to For a Few Dollars More, the story almost hits harder because you were expecting to not get it, you know?
Absolutely. And that's, it's, once again, your point about Fistful of Dollars, so simple. It's such a simple story. There's good dynamics to it, but it introduces us to a wandering nomad as our protagonist. It introduces us to a brand new villain, and it gives us a completely new score that's just foreign to us. And I absolutely believe that when Sergio Leone made this, he was like, there's more to come. And he didn't want to give it away all right then and there, because if he would have come right out with something like Good, Bad, and the Ugly, you'd have been like, how do you go?
Build up
it's
to
like,
it.
how do you go to that? But with these, it's like this Man with No Name series, the trilogy, the way he builds up to it is just impeccable. And the way it grips you, because like you said, simple story, then we get into it For a Few Dollars More. We get an additional protagonist that we can have. Now we have two protagonists, and now we have an even stronger villain. But now we have an even more robust score that's getting us, because that's what that's how Morricone does. He gets you on the edge of your seat with the scores. And then honestly, his triumph is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I mean,
I love at the grocery store, you just shout, ah, and then you see who answers.
and that's just what's so amazing about it. I mean, that one was a triumph. There's a couple areas in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I mean, then we're also introduced to Eli Wallach, and you're sitting here going, how can you have three protagonists and make a good film? How can you do this? And he does it, and it's wild. It goes in so many different directions. And I mean, even from, God, I think one of my favorite, when we were talking about military film, right?
Yes.
And I think I went in to explain how difficult it is to capture a sense of time.
Mm-hmm.
Time passed, because I think we were talking about, like World War II, young man getting drafted in, time at basic training, time shipping overseas, the time, and how it's just so difficult to pack that into something or get somebody to truly understand
how the impact of that.
Yeah. Whereas Sergio Leone is a master, an absolute master. We have the desert scenes in Good and Bad.
Oh my God!
When he's walking him out there, you feel it. You feel like you're out there walking.
You're like, are my
with
lips chapped? Can I get some water? Can you go?
And it's just because every time the score just starts to fade out, and you think it's over, and it comes back up, and it fades out more, and then comes back even stronger, and you're just kind of going, oh my God, is this going to end? But you love hearing the score so much. And you're just so encapsulated by what's going on. You're just kind of like, wow, he's suffering, but you're really enjoying it every minute.
Yeah, 100%.
Visually, you're like, oh my God, but your ears are just going, this is amazing.
Like, yeah, it's like a weird pain pleasure thing. It's like a BDSM thing with film.
It's like the first time you hear Pavarotti.
Yes.
You hear Pavarotti and you get goosebumps. Like
you are a Ron Howard fan.
You just sit there and go, oh God.
Just kidding.
Hey, he's all right. I grew up on it.
His new Pavarotti movie's coming out. I'm pretty stoked about it.
I mean, that's the thing. When, you hear it the first time and you're taken aback. You're blown away. You're just
so
like, this is amazing. It's magical. But you get it in those scenes. And then, God, even better, another one of my favorite ones is when he tells him what grave the gold's in, or so he thinks, and you have Eli Wallach running down, and you see this circle of gravestones, and he's just running, and you think it's going to end quick, but it carries on for like 5 minutes, and you have this amazing score going along with it, just moving along. And by this point, we've already decimated the score of the film prior, for a few dollars more, and we've made monumental bounds from a fistful of dollars, and the score is just why Morricone got this Oscar so late,
right?
Like you said, how he did not. I'd love to see we'll have to research that. But what in God's name won for best score in '66?
The same year, 100%.
What won it that year?
What could have?
Sorry, but try and name a film where you can conquer that score. I mean, it was so brilliant.
I gotta say though, the Hateful Eight one,
like Star Wars,
that Hateful Eight score. At the very beginning, that oboe or bassoon or whatever, obsessed. But the thing about Once Upon a Time in the West, we're not there yet. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I saw
the other beautiful last scene.
Yes,
the score just.
Excellent.
You're on your seat. I get goosebumps.
We're getting goosebumps.
We're getting goosebumps. I'm nervous in front of the camera.
I was so lucky because it was a Fathom event for Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and that's the first time I ever saw it. So I got to see it on the big screen for the first time, and apparently it was the extended cut. Yeah. And I had no idea because it just felt so good. Like it just felt so. It doesn't feel like forever. Like the scenes that drag on, you're invested.
Film. Yeah, it's a long film. Yeah, absolutely. It's well over 2 hours.
Yeah,
just because all the dynamics that go on with being captured by being moonlighting as Confederacy, then getting captured by Union and all this and everything, it goes through so many things. But yeah, once you get to that last scene, you feel like
worth it.
So much film has gone by. The score and the visuals have stressed your body to the point that you're just kind of like you're standing there with them. Yeah. But then you get like easily the most memorable scored scene in the history of film. I mean, arguably, where you have Eli Wallach, Clint Eastwood, and Lee Van Cleef in the three-way face-off, and it's just like.
It's like, oh my God.
And then it's weird because, you got Lee Van Cleef, who was a good guy in the previous film, Bounty Hunter, and now he's just
garbage.
He's a ruthless bad guy now. And the way they're putting him down, and then, the way...
But even in that last moment, it's good because that shot still gets you. You know what I mean? You've gone through all this movie, and then it still gets you.
When he goes for his gun again, and he's on the ground, they hit him, and he falls in, and he rolls into his grave, and you're just like, wow. And then you find out, the grave was unknown.
You let out a
yeah, just kidding. Just like they do at the end, because he rides off and he and he leaves him on the cross and he shoots him down and he's like, "You son of a!" He doesn't get to say bitch because they go into the and it's just fun. you know it, right? God, when they hit that score, it's just like, go, 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 go. And you just start moving along with it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is so good. But
and then on the opposite note, I'm going to transition.
do it.
Once Upon a Time in the West, that first scene is the best use of silence in a film I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And which is nuts because, you come to Once Upon a Time in the West, a film that just shocked people, absolutely shocked people. You know, they're coming off of, in 64, 65, 66, they launched this trifecta of spaghetti westerns that just encapsulate the world. Everybody's just blown away by these things. And this is where we find, Django is starting to kick off because the first Django came out in 66. But then in 68, we come out with Once Upon a Time in the West. And the star power that they chuck in there is hilarious. But the best part is like everyone hears this, obviously, and they go, Sergio Leone, you made another one. There's another one. And the film starts and everybody's like, I'm ready for the score. I'm ready for this brilliant score. Where is it?
Where is it? What's happening?
And it's this long silence. And
so tense. It's so like skin crawling, like at every little creak. You're just hyper aware.
Yes. You sit back in the chair and just the flies messing with you.
And you're like,
and it's just going on forever.
And then you start swatting for flies and you're watching it.
But it's obviously it's one of the most brilliant opening scenes in the film.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, the way it goes down, and it's a great introduction for Charles Bronson as he shows up. The part, I think the one thing that really gets people in this film is Henry Fonda.
Yeah.
Because everyone's so used to, 12 Angry Men, Grapes of Wrath.
Oof.
They're like, that's the Fonda
we know.
Then you end up with this, he's polar opposite of what you're used to. Because I guarantee when people saw that thing in the theater, they're like, oh, Henry Fonda.
I'm going to go see that movie.
I'm such a fan of Fonda. I can't wait. Then you see how sadistic he is.
And it's so interesting because Once Upon a Time in the West, I think it really confirms that one of the strongest points of spaghetti western in general is the way they write villains, because honestly the western genre gets a lot of flack for like being a very like it's so niche that it's sometimes a lot of the same thing.
It's predictable, like
but
we were talking
villains
about in the beginning.
It are so excellent still.
Yes.
They're so well done.
And that's just with Henry Fonda. I mean, and you wonder about it because when you go from for a few dollars more to the good, the bad, and the ugly, Lee Van Cleef, being the bad guy in the good, bad, and the ugly, he doesn't really eclipse what we saw in our villain in For a Few Dollars More. Like I think and so since it kind of tapers it down a little bit, because you had like you're introduced to villain in the first one, you have a truly sadistic and vile individual in the second one, but then Lee Van Cleef comes in and he kind of. Yeah, he's a bad guy. He's a villain. He does bad shit. Yeah. But he's kind of like, it's almost like he's moonlighting because he's trying to get to, these other intentions. But you get into this, and then, you find another villain that is beyond. I mean, you're actually finding someone that is so cold, so ruthless, gunning down children and whole families. It's just, and it's Henry Fonda. So I think that the shock factor of that, when we saw his second coming of a villain, it was like I said, same individual, just different role, and really embodied it. And then we kind of escaped it, but now we get into it, and now you got a guy that just once again takes it to that extreme violent level, of which at the time no one was used to. Nobody was ready for. Yes. And what they do. And then the other part is that you kind of have, with Jason Robards in there, you have the individual who presents as a bad man, as a bad person, as the villain, but he's not. Yeah. That
twist on it is it heightens the tension of the villain.
Absolutely, because you have when the lovely Claudia Cardinale, her essentially, she's gorgeous.
She's
woman
so gorgeous,
super stunning. But do you
need to talk about your lady parts reactions? No, just kidding.
If I had any lady parts on me, I wouldn't be here right now.
I didn't mean to throw a curveball your way, Nick.
No, you did. Like, something I don't know.
You're like, wait a minute.
I peed standing up this morning.
You're like, I'm scared.
What could have happened, man? But what I say, Claudia Cardinale, when when she comes into town, she sees that her whole family's been done in, and then we start to find out. Now we have a female moving into his films, and moving
into a primary role that's not just damsel.
Because in the other films, there's not, in his trifecta, there's not much of a female presence. I mean, it's really just not there. And now you have a woman in a...
I think it's men processing through the different types of men in the no man with no name, and then this is like you said.
I mean, there's like the occasional woman, but they're just used. They're used, essentially. There's nothing. They don't really have anything in the film. Whereas with Claudia Cardinale, this was her big introduction onto the screen. People had known of her, and she does really well. But as I was saying, when we first see her, she's in town. She's into the bar. The family's gone and everything. And she's on her way in, and we hear the shootout outside, the struggle. And then Jason Robards comes in with cuffs on him. And you're just kind of going, God, is this our villain? And like she's visibly terrified by it. She's like this, and you're getting this feeling that there's about to be this evil dynamic between these two, And then you find out it's not that. Jason Robards is the caring guy through the whole thing. He looks after her. He takes care of her. He tries to help her, and with the help, and with Charles Bronson coming into it as well, they're trying to help this woman. But then we find out that she's not the traditional damsel. We find out she's a hooker from New Orleans who had a couple hot nights with this guy and said, I'll marry you and take care of your 15 kids. Yeah. Sure, when do you want me to come up? And so you find out that, she's like, she doesn't come from some pure past or anything like that. I think that adds to the dynamic because if we were to sit here and have watched a film where a strong female part came into it, there was a Sergio Leone film, and we said it's like, oh yeah, she was the school teacher and this and that. We would be talking shit about it. We would be like, that's not Sergio
We'd be like,
It doesn't make sense. But
also, that's safe for this type of film genre.
So now you take some prostitute from New Orleans and bring her up here. It's like, okay, now it's spaghetti western. Now it's the embodiment of the spaghetti western. This is the embodiment of Sergio Leone. It makes sense now. This woman in this film makes sense.
Yes, and you brought up two really interesting points with the twist on the woman and the twist on the good man. Yeah. Because, Once Upon a Time in the West, it's another really long film. But it works because, you're constantly getting new information as it's going on. It never feels like it's dragging, and it never feels like anything in the film in general doesn't fit or isn't needed. Absolutely. It's like old Hollywood where it's like not old Hollywood, not in general, but it's like the good old Hollywood, where everything is so vital to the full core of the film that you can't take anything else and you can't add anything.
There's pieces that can't be missed, and then if you tried to add,
it's a perfect puzzle.
You'd be screwing it up. Yeah, and I think it's one of those things like if you ever sit down and write, like if you write yourself a really good story and you go through all your edits and suggestions and everybody looks at it and then you get to the point where you go, I have to leave this alone right now. I love where it's at. I feel if I add to it, I'm going to ruin it. I feel if I take certain things out, I'm going to ruin it. And it feels like such a complete piece. And it's such fun dynamic because it's, Henry Fonda goes on to be just this total brutal piece of shit throughout the whole film.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an incredible, he played it incredibly.
Which is interesting because his type was, like you said, so opposite, and I think that's why he's so good.
I think that's why it impacts people so much, and they're so taken aback by it because Leone put him in this completely untraditional role. But I think the other part that makes me laugh so much, the one thing about Once Upon a Time in the West, it makes me laugh. Okay. Because it's essentially because when we get to the end, right? They're building the town and everything because that's what they had planned, and obviously Claudia, she's going to be, running it and everything. She's going to be like the woman of the town, And Jason Robards is like, go out there and give those guys some water. And if they give you a pop on the ass, don't be offended by it. Pretend you like it, And so, essentially, I would argue this is one of the very first times that in film that we saw, you can't make a whole housewife. I knew I could get away with it on your program. I knew it. I'm like the
I need Robert to like.
It's pretty much Jason Robards like. Nice
I need
try.
to write that into a paper. Oh my god, that's hilarious!
I'm telling you, I think it's the very first argument of you can't make a whole housewife.
Oh my god! I just imagine. I need to lead on Robert with this. I'm like, I need to talk to you about Once Upon a Time in the West. I need to talk to you about a really interesting thing. I want to get it published. Blah 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 blah. I go into this whole thing, and then at the end, I'm just like, you can't make a whole housewife, Robert.
I'll co-write it with you.
That'll be our claim to fame.
It's just, and it's so funny because like that dawned on me at the end. Jason Robards is pretty much like, hey, I know you tried the husband thing, but you saw what happened.
Which is ironic because we just came from leaving Las Vegas.
Yes. You can't make a whole house. It doesn't work. And so that's what I'm thinking. I think that was the first dive into it. People, if someone knows a film earlier that we could attest, do it. I'll make a. Yeah.
We'll write a thesis.
We'll do a chronology of Hose versus Housewife.
We'll talk about it on the Doris Day episode.
But isn't that bad? Like that's the one thing I thought of when it's over. Like he tells her that line, and
I think that's hilarious.
Her way outside, and I'm like, damn right, Jace, can't make a whole housewife. That's just me.
On the other foot though, I don't think she wants to be a housewife.
No, there we go. That's the argument I was looking for.
Yeah. But what were you gonna say?
No, that's what I was just like, man, if there's one place I could get away with this.
Yeah,
like it's Erynn's podcast. I'm like, I know there's one.
Channel for Cinephiles. I'm here about embracing sexuality.
Yeah, and I'm here to
go be a hoe, ladies. I love that.
Yeah, do it. Oh, that's what college is for.
Yeah.
You forget.
If you don't want to be a housewife, it's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I was like, man, this is one place I could get away with my theory.
You were like ready. You were waiting.
And they start a class now. You never know. Like,
making house.
Fernando or Rob might be doing talking about Italian film, and they'll be like, and right here, this proves can't make a whole housewife.
That's we can get into Hitchcock. We could get into. You can't make a housewife a hoe. Yeah. Doris Day.
Now Doris Day on the other hand, not a hoe, great housewife.
Coincidence? I think not.
That's what I'm saying. So, we get Once Upon a Time in the West just deserves
so good,
so much credit. Now, I will argue that the score is not that good in that one.
But I think and also it's not something that they wanted to emphasize.
People are going to kill me for this. I don't like the harmonica. I just don't. I don't like the note. I think you could have done it.
People were like, "We are okay with the hoe and housewife, but don't you come for the harmonica?"
I know. Now this is what's going to be like.
This is the thing.
I know that. I'd be like, "That's what made you mad." I'll get one comment.
That's the trigger
through you, and just be like, I love this hoe analysis, but the harmonica, God damn it!
What the fuck?
I will put my foot down.
I swear to God.
My grandfather was a harmonicist, okay, but no, that's and I think it's just because of the note stuff. He's always playing in the way he does it.
It's not as cute as
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's where it screwed me because I'm expecting, the next great triumph of the score.
Yeah,
and it was just really simplified down. And the film was so much more cinematography than it was the score.
No, that's a good observation. Yeah, I do think Once Upon a Time in the West was a lot more cinematography based.
Oh, absolutely. Because, when you compare it to the trilogy, it was all voiced. There was so much more voiceover recording afterward and a lot of individuals speaking Italian or Spanish and such.
Which is so interesting.
And you can tell in the lip movements and the way they're speaking, but it's crazy because, the actors were the ones that came in. They voiced it over in English.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a funny story about spaghetti westerns. Yeah. So all the actors spoke a bunch of different languages. Yeah. They all dubbed over in English. But when you get to, Spanish dubs, one of them will line up because one of them was speaking Spanish. Italian dubs, a couple of them will line up because a couple of them were speaking Italian. And that's so interesting. I love that.
And that's and so I think that, but it's really, it's a bit choppy, sometimes, and he gets great shots, but I think so also that simplicity where I think more so we're in the trilogy, they really flex the new type of Western they've created and the score that they've created. But then in Once Upon a Time in the West, he really settled. Leone settled what an incredible filmmaker he is from a cinematography standpoint. because you end up with some of the most amazing shots. You end up with impeccable detail, and the way that we're brought into scenes and taken away from them is unlike things we had seen at the time. And so I think that's one of the reasons, because we all know, like a film can't stand alone on a score, but cinematography is what gets people's attention. You know, the visual aspect of it, and I think that
because there's always the argument too.
Visually, he really didn't need that good of it. He could have made that whole film could have been silent.
Well, with music,
we would have all walked away just going, "My God, what a masterpiece he just gave!"
No, 100%. Yeah, and music, there's always a discussion of should it be something that you are aware of as it's going on? Should it be something that's in the background? So, like, music is a whole other weird thing to tackle in spaghetti western.
Non-diegetic.
100%. So let's enter Django.
Yes, enter Django, because you opened up on it, so we opened up on Django because we wanted to pay tribute. So now we
perfect
can
story.
Go into Django, but this is the one that I find it so interesting, because when we were talking, when we first talked about the concept of Django in spaghetti westerns, you know, we threw out there, I was just like, there's so many damn Django movies. There's
and I was
so many.
like, what?
And, you know, we were kind of going back and forth, and I started naming off all these Django films that I had heard of or seen.
And I was like, what?
And then I was like, there's this offshoot character created as well called Sartana. Sartana was another...
Oh, man.
Sartana's kind of one we could throw in there, but the body of work is difficult because it got exploited like Django did as well. So the original Django... original one, that was in 1966, and as we said, starred Franco Nero, who we said made the cameo in Django Unchained up at the bar. But I mean, this is a Django comes out, and it gets wild because, as we said, you know, you made a great point of spaghetti western appropriation, okay, and people benefiting off of this.
Of it without, paying homage.
Yes, and Corbucci is one of these guys that just saw it, and he saw the popularity of it and did something good with Django. But after he did Django, that's when the appropriation game started, and it went freaking haywire. But even the piece of Django coming in, I mean, we got this guy who drags a coffin around as a gunslinger. You know, he and then there's like a half-breed hooker that he hangs out with.
Love that.
And he's feuding.
Me too. That's Nick and I.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I think so much more.
Oh my God, thanks.
Go easy on yourself.
I keep throwing curveballs at you, Nick.
God, you shouldn't talk about your prostitution on the air.
All our listeners are my clients. Just kidding.
Oh God. This is why one person's like, oh, I know Nick, he's pretty cool, and I don't hear. You never tell me about the comments you get.
I never tell you about.
I didn't know it was gentlemen callers. Well,
oh my God!
I'm working with a lady of the night.
A lady of the night, a lady of the day.
You hide it well.
Thank you.
You do.
Thank you so much. No. Yeah, right. Could you imagine? I roll up to that hotel room, you know, I'm like, let's talk about Hitchcock. And they're like, get out.
Speaking of Hitchcock.
Roll up.
So I had to.
We were talking about. No, I used to follow this blog.
Get me started on dirty stuff.
I used to follow this blog. It was called Hard Cock for Hitchcock.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Weird.
Isn't that hilarious? That was the runner-up for the podcast name.
I would just think it's just like a bunch of hard men in a row just waiting for Hitchcock to.
Well, the blog was run by a woman.
Oh God.
Which is even better.
She's probably taking her clothes off.
I love
she's giving movie reviews.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. No, I love that. Evelyn, wait. You were okay. We're gonna get off on this for a second because you need to know about this, Nick.
Yeah,
what was that woman you were telling me about?
What? It was like. I can't remember. It was like Hitchcock Reborn or something, and it's like an Instagram page of a girl who just takes like, you know, your stereotypical like kind of Instagram girl online selfies, but she's always wearing like a Hitchcock rubber mask and then like these low cut shirts that like.
Oh, that's creepy!
Right,
it's the best thing.
It's like a nightmare.
I know. The last thing I want to think about is Alfred Hitchcock when I'm getting down. I mean, how do you have sex to that?
My lady parts just texted me and were like, "Whoa!"
I mean, he has a daughter, so
I know you screwed the theme of Hitchcock Presents. You're just like,
This is a good one. This is consistent.
Don't put the mask on, whatever you do. God.
Are you sure, babe?
I know.
Are you sure? No, I'm just kidding.
Show us your face.
Oh my god. She takes off her mask. She just has Hitchcock's face.
I wonder if she wears it because she's like just hideous underneath. Like she has just like a stunning body, but underneath she's just like a troll or something.
She's literally the face of that troll guy in Labyrinth.
Yeah, like that guy.
I love that.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, Django.
Yeah. So
Django.
we were saying I find it really funny because we get these really cool dynamics and. When we get introduced to our protagonists and how far they are from the protagonists of traditional Western film. And then you get Django, and like I said, a coffin-dragging gunslinger hang out with a half-breed hooker and fighting Southern clan racists and Mexican revolutionaries.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's when the genre...
You're taking all of this shit. I mean, you got a hooker, a guy dragging a coffin with a gun in it, going against... racists and revolutionaries. There's nothing peachy about that. There's nothing cute. I mean, it's just I think
it goes full hard blown exploitation at this point.
Yes.
And it's not really like the genre defining itself anymore. It's the genre looking back at what defined the genre, which time-wise, it's interesting that came so fast for the genre because this is like right around when Once Upon a Time in the West was released, right?
The original Django is in '66. Once Upon a Time in the West came out in '68.
Oh,
so
okay.
you could even argue that Leone saw Django and he might have been like, "That's pretty cool." But watch this.
Yeah.
Because the Django films are
take a seat, Django.
They're incredibly choppy. Like there's the cinematography is just not there.
I've seen bits of the first one and it's very clunky.
It's an escape of it, So I think I think that Leone probably appreciated what Corbucci did and watching Frank Nero and seeing the first film. He was that's pretty cool. But then after that. The films that followed, because we were talking about this in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's only two.
And I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to leave this to Nick.
I did the research on this because I was so intrigued by it, because I was just like, how the hell are there so many Django films? And then I remember one, I know Franco Nero is the star of as Django. I'd always known Franco Nero as Django. And then I started getting into all these other films like, Get a Coffin for Django, or Django Meets Sartana, and all this stuff, and then you're looking at it, and as you're seeing the posters, as you're seeing the film art, it's Franco Nero's face.
Yeah.
But then you look into who's in the film, Franco Nero's not in it, and you're sitting here just going, how can you get away with this? How can you call your film Django, put Franco Nero and his likeness on your posters, and then not have Franco Nero in it? Like, what the hell's going on? And then that's where I found out, like I said, there were only two original Django.
Two originals,
So you had the one in '66, and then 21 years later in '87, you have Django Strikes Again. And in that one, Django's a monk. He returns to gunslinging when his estranged daughter is kidnapped by a Hungarian slaver. So, I mean, talk about another wild dynamic in. So 21 years later, and that's Corbucci collaborating with Frank Nero. There's the only two that they were in.
Yeah.
Django itself spawned over 30 illegitimate, unaffiliated, unapproved sequels.
How?
Over 30.
Okay, I need a time frame. Is this like
we're talking up to current day?
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yes, we're talking from like '66, and then these things started coming out year after year.
No wonder that bitch jumped at Tarantino to do
the one I was telling you about. The ones from
the
Asia,
Japanese
the
one,
Sukiyaki Django, like 2015.
Wow.
But and so what happened? I was like, how can these people do this? Well, loose copyright laws in Italy is what did it, because at the time it was easy for directors from anywhere. Because of these copyright laws in Italy, anybody from around the world, because as we saw with Sukiyaki and some other renditions of it, anyone whatsoever could use Django. They could use the name and his likeness in advertising to be able to draw attention to their exploitation. That's where we really get into the appropriation.
Yes.
Because this is where people really started just doing shit with the genre. It's where we saw this entrance of Sartana, but Sartana was part of this extreme, poorly done exploitation piece and had really no connection whatsoever. So Sartana kind of arose out of this, appropriated Django's that went down. And so you end up with all these films, and honestly, the name Django didn't really receive any justice again until we got to Django Unchained. That's when we finally saw another Django-titled film. And I mean, you got to think over the span of 21 years, there's about 20 of these unaffiliated, illegitimate other Djangos, these copies coming out. Then you get Django Strikes Again, and you get a really good piece. But then as soon as that's gone, now you have another 10, 15 ones fall in, and nobody gets it right. They keep screwing it up, making it worse and worse, until Tarantino gets his hands on it.
Which, honestly, that
he's
sounds
just like, I'm going to make a Django film that's a spaghetti western. But puts Frank Nero into it.
And also, knowing Tarantino and knowing his history and all that stuff, he probably did it as a big middle finger to all the people screwing with Django. Yeah,
absolutely, because he's such I guarantee Tarantino's watched all of those. He's unaffiliated. I've watched them. You can't speak about what shit they are until you watch them. And they may have one neat part to it or something, but otherwise everything else is just this mass exploitation.
When you're getting to the point of a movie terrible. Where you're like, I like that one shot, it's a bad movie.
Yes.
When that's all you could say about it, it's bad.
And that's what happened. I think Tarantino wanted to do it justice because you end up with so many of these shit. Sukiyaki Django sucks. It's a joke. I didn't make it through it all. I made it through a little bit, and I was like, fuck this. I was like, I got better things. I'm like, I'd rather swallow a knife than have to sit through the rest of this. So I was like, fuck it.
I'd rather fuck a woman in a Hitchcock rubber mask.
I'd rather fuck a bottle of bleach. So that's... I would rather. So there you go.
That's a mood.
This episode's gone off. I am loving it.
It's just gonna be so many bleep.
I know it's scary how comfortable you can get doing it.
I tend to bring that up.
You do. You're egging me on. I'm blaming it all on you. It's my manager, producer, friend.
I'm the producer and editor of the podcast, so this is technically my fault because
the 5 shirts you wear for me. I'm blaming them all.
But oh my god, yeah. So that brings it to the final question. I don't think we have to answer this, at all.
Do it.
But why do you think this style is used so much but not talked about?
It's hard to. I think for that span, I don't. I know we say it's used so much, but I do not count the illegitimate, unapproved,
that's okay,
the appropriated, what we were talking about, spaghetti western appropriation, people making bounds off of it,
Django's.
Just saying,
just Django's.
Yes. So I don't include that.
Okay.
And so I think that could answer your second part, because I think any student, any academic of film, any film lover would easily discount those ones.
Yeah.
And we see it with Tarantino. It's like he saw him, he did it, he looked at him, but then he just went, and gave him a giant middle finger and said, this is how it's supposed to be done. And you know that because he had the goal, he had the intelligence to bring, Franco Nero into his film. So it's
which that in of itself is a big sign of respect.
And so even to think about, to answer the question further, when you disregard that amount, and then the true spaghetti westerns that we put out there, these are films that stand on their own and have stood the test of time. But if we look at how few came out in so much time, and then we see, Django Unchained is our modern, rendition of it, I think it changed the face of Western, but I absolutely 100% because we started getting films like Tombstone. An incredible Western, absolutely incredible Western. Yes, it tells the story of Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, and everything, but it gives a phenomenal edge to it. Whereas if John Ford would have directed it back in the day, you wouldn't have had the dynamic between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo that you do. Yeah, it is brutal. It's so good, and it makes you watch the film. But it's arguably one of the better Westerns ever made. And so it changes it in that way. But I think in order to do a spaghetti Western, to get it right, you need to be a master of your craft.
Yeah.
I think that there's only a few select directors that can really come out with a good spaghetti western.
Well, and how many
Sergio
directors do you credit a whole genre with? You know what? How many genres, like, you know,
spaghetti western
with Sergio Leone?
Is Sergio Leone. You know, it's you know, it's simple as that. I mean, just like Hitchcock is to the thriller.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but nowadays, you know, who could you say is a Hitchcock?
Yeah.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
Whereas when we get to this with Tarantino taking it on, you can say, who's our modern day Sergio Leone? It's Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's Quentin Tarantino. It's like, this is the Sergio Leone of our time. So to be able to recreate and excel with something that was so impeccable to start, that just blew people away and ignited a genre and so much after it, the good ones are so few and far between.
100%.
And like, we see Leone's triumphs and go away, and then we see Django, and we're just like, this is good. But then we see people just turn it to shit over time. And then Tarantino comes in and says, no, this is how you do it right.
Which is the name of the game.
Which is, I think, why, because it's not talked about enough. So I think that answers kind of like the few first ones, because if you disregard some, then you're like, it's a little bit, but then it's not talked about enough just because it's not traditionally what people want.
That's fair too.
It's not what they want. Like, you gotta go into these films just knowing this film's got a set of balls, man. It's got grit. It's going to get your attention because of the realness of these characters. You know, just how well they hit to real life, and how they take these individuals you never think of. You know, the bounty hunter, and they create these hyper violent villains. You know, a guy dragging a coffin. You have, you know, prostitutes playing the roles of the damsels. It's not what people want, you know.
It's really
not
dynamic.
What traditional Western folks are used to.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to discuss and argue and talk about traditional Westerns because, like you alluded to earlier, they get predictable.
Yeah.
You know what's going to go on. Whereas these ones, you actually have to think to be able to talk about it. You have to really get into these films. You have to get into the underlying story, and you have to really appreciate what spaghetti westerns did for the Western genre and how they became their own little offshoot. And that's why these films are talked more about in these forms, and even when you hear them talked about on YouTube and such, it's skilled individuals they're talking about, properly trained individuals. Because I mean, there's definitely a couple, you know, movie sites that I love to just go to because on YouTube, because I love the information that they give. I love how I talk about it. They're the academics type. They can really they can start to understand it, and I just there's so much there to unpack, and I think it just falls in like with if you talk to somebody about, you know, Pulp Fiction's such a great movie ever, and you always have that person that's like, no, there's that scene, you know, where the cop is, you know, banging Ving Rhames and stuff.
Why does he have a samurai sword?
Yeah, and all this shit, but that's all they get.
Yeah.
You're just kind of going, okay, you've obviously never watched the film. Like you saw it, but you never really watched it. You never really got into it. You never really unpacked what's going on, if that's all you remember. And I think that's the thing, when you get into something that people are kind of put off by, they don't want to discuss it.
Well, to extend that point, I think that also it was such dynamic storytelling in the beginning of the definition of the genre, but then it kind of runs rampant into exploitation really fast. And I think in a lot of ways the genre became a joke to most people, except for, you know, the people who are actually studying and all that stuff. So I think it was hard for the public to kind of like see it as something that was highly artistically valid, because, you know, the genre ran away with all these other knockoffs.
Well, what they were brought up on. You know, traditionally what they were brought up on.
Yeah.
They're not getting what they traditionally want. And they just go, I don't like it. And it's like, no.
Why doesn't he have a name?
Why can't it change? You know, like if love stories never started turning into rom-coms, you know, the love story would have never advanced.
Yeah.
Everything has to have its offshoot, you know, like if drama didn't turn into hyper-violent.
And like
such, like
action didn't turn into, horror didn't turn into torture porn.
Yeah. I mean, it's all these things. Everything needs to have an offshoot. It needs to advance. And I think that this is one of those things where we just saw in Sergio Leone someone that was so progressive beyond the time, you know, giving them something when people are just coming off of a couple John Ford films. Yeah. The traditional Western. This guy's just slapping him in the face, going, screw your tradition. this is how it is,
Yeah.
and bringing a new reality to it. At the time, I mean, think about people in the 60s seeing this stuff. It's going to be so...
Well, in 68, Once Upon a Time in the West, it wasn't the 67 crop of films, but it still continued, like, the momentum.
Well, I mean, yeah, and you think about how it impacted people, and I mean, shortly after that, The Exorcist comes out.
Oh, yeah.
And you have people having heart attacks in the theater, running out of the theater, puking, screaming, losing their minds, where you watch it now, people are going to be in the theater laughing at some of the stuff that goes on. So it has to go on, but also it's just a testament of the times to where probably at that time this was more of a taboo, underground type of thing, specifically where we were at as a country, where we were at with Hollywood and everything like that. You know, this was much more taboo. And if we know anything about taboo, we know that it's just starting to, it comes out more now in our time, whereas back then taboo was a vilification.
Or shut down immediately,
Yeah, it was done. It was very underground. You never heard about a lot of stuff. And so that's why I think it started, it took a while to really take, and I think it's why so many of us now can look back and appreciate it and just and enjoy just how far ahead of its time it was. And then be so thankful for it as well because of some of the brilliant Western films it's brought us in the meantime, where we have a new edge to it and we can get away from that predictability, the traditional Western. And then when we can get a very modern lens put through it, like we did with Tarantino, that's when it takes it to a new level. And it takes something that we look back and just go, that was really good. But now you took everything we loved about that, you put it here, and then now you upped it to another element to make us just appreciate it even more.
Yeah, no, 100%.
That's why
beautiful. I'm gonna cry.
That's why Django Unchained is so fun.
Yes,
you know, because as you said, it's a giant middle finger to the jerk offs that made all these shitty,
terrible movies,
you know, appropriated shit flicks. I guess I don't know what we'll call them. I'll think of some crafty. I know.
You gotta think of a branded one for just gentlemen for cinephiles.
Yeah, vai fan culo. Fuck 'em. But my Italian is good. But I would just that would be my thought on it. Honestly, my argument is it's a great question that you give. You know, why are they not giving enough attention in that? And I think that if you disregard the trash, if you trim the fat from it, you're down to select films.
Yeah, 100%.
But that speaks volumes. If we sit down and we put comedy, action, thriller, you and I will sit up there naming hundreds of films for them. When you go spaghetti western, though, it is a genre, but it is a genre that's held up by films.
4 films, 5 maybe.
How do you that speaks volumes right there. That 100%. Speaks volumes. Sitting there going, I only need this many. And I have a whole genre.
Well, and that speaks to the quality.
It has hundreds of thousands of films. Spaghetti Western, right there. Yeah. It's on my little DVD shelf. It has bookends. Yeah. You know, and you can stand on that. That's powerful. That's special. That's something that deserves absolute respect. You know, to the filmmaker, to the cinematographers, to the score, everybody that was part of that stuff did such an impeccable job.
Right, 100%.
It's such a triumph. It's an absolute triumph. It's something they can hang their hat on. You know, somebody writes a comedy. You know, oh, good, you wrote a comedy. You threw it in the pool. Cool. I wrote a spaghetti western. Yeah. There's like 5 others.
There's like 5 of them. You know.
Yeah.
You might have heard of it.
Good luck with your script, dude.
Yeah. You thought. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, I mean, Sergio Leone could have been like the best shit talker ever.
Oh yeah.
Gucci could have talked some shit. Quentin Tarantino, he can talk this shit.
Yeah, 100%.
You're Tarantino, you're the man. You can sit up there in a news conference. I think your theory blows. You know, maybe you should fuck off and never ask me a question again.
Also, I will say, okay, I'm going to go on a little rant. That video that everybody always shares about him being really mean to that lady. I watched the full interview. She comes in and she's like, "Why do you suck at making movies?" And like all this shit. I was like, "What?" And then he's like, "Because it's so much fun, Jan. Get it." That's my favorite line.
Yes,
so good. It's so good.
And that's what I love. If you're an accomplished filmmaker, stand by your work.
Oh yeah.
You were telling me about the guy in Germany who like makes terrible. His name. What was his name?
What was his name? Uwe Boll.
And I went ooey shit.
Uwe Boll of shit.
Uwe Boll of shit. That's what I call.
He fist fights people in a ring.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like, how can you? When you have some of these great directors up there, what gives you where's the audacity come from that you think is obvious, probably communications major.
This is me getting on my soapbox, but like a lot of people in school nowadays, you know, they're all like, oh, we don't care about the films everyone else thinks are good. But as much as I
then you're gonna
think,
suck.
Yeah.
You're gonna suck at what you do. Then.
Yeah, and even if you don't like them, you have to pay
to
respect.
You have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can start. There's films you have to watch in film class where you're straining.
We're going to get into that next month.
You're straining to get through it.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, oh my god, when is this going to end? And it's like, I get it. I get why this is a good picture.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be so naive. Don't be such an ass to the fact that you're like, I'm not going to waste my time. You're not going to learn.
The Godfather is so dumb. I'm like,
right. No. Somebody says that shit, we're having a fist fight.
We're having a Uwe Boll fist fight. Let's get in the ring.
Not happening. Godfather and Godfather 2 are impeccable.
Excellent.
I mean,
Excellente. Michael Corleone is my brand, and it's been my brand since I was 6 years old.
When he kisses his brother and when he kisses Fredo goodbye, it's like, oh my god.
I always tell everyone, in my house where my children sleep and play with their toys.
I couldn't. It's just God. Yeah, the death of Fredo is
so hurt
because you just have Michael staring out the window in the reflection, and as soon as the gunshot goes off, his eyes go down.
Oh my god!
And it's Caligari like.
Yes.
Because I think.
Oh my god! It's all silent.
That's one of the best things about Caligari is when he wakes the somnambulist for the first time, and the makeup is so good, you don't realize that his eyes are open. To where when they do open, it terrifies you. It absolutely terrifies you because you don't realize he's been looking at you for a whole minute.
My boy.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Your boy on
100%.
The guy on your arm.
Yes.
You know? Oh, but I mean,
that scene is so good. It's funny you bring that up. No, I'm just kidding.
It's terrifying. No, it's terrifying. It is the scariest damn scene in the film.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize the way they blacked out his eyes. Mm-hmm. You don't know they're open.
Mm-hmm. And how long it takes him to open them. You're like.
And then when he does, you're just like.
It's like Michael Myers walking to kill his victims. You're like,
don't come through this, please.
I'm gonna chill here.
Then I argued that he was innocent in my analysis of the film.
That's because he is.
I did. I argued that it was the guy on the bench that's the insane one, and we're living through him. And I did good on it. I got a check plus.
Oh my god! Me too, twinsies.
Yes. Finally, I knew
check
there was another. Here we are talking about Calgary. Yeah. All right, we went off.
Anyway, so you can find us at Gentlemen Prefer Cinephiles. You can see Nick next Saturday. So excited! It's gonna be August, and it's gonna be. Nick, how do you feel? Your first month.
It's pretty. I'm better now. It was easier once we got the cameras out.
That's good. Yeah,
the cameras. Like I think those first. Unfortunately, the first.
It's scary.
The episode, you were like, "I'm just gonna do audio," and I was like, "Oh, thank God," because like I said, I was a babbling idiot in my first couple episodes, and I felt better about these past couple episodes. It's been easier to open up and then get away with a couple things.
Also, it didn't just start raining on us this time.
I know.
Last time we were here recording, it just started pouring rain. He was like, "These men are being sent to war," and then on cue, all the rain just
I was talking about Patton, and I was talking about the intro to Patton, how incredibly moving it is. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the sky's open. I'm just glad we have clouds because it is way too hot today.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It was way too hot.
Oh yeah.
God. But
I will see you guys Tuesday. Nick will see you guys next Saturday. Yep. And you guys are amazing. And I appreciate you guys all. You can find us at Gentlemen for Cinephiles, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. But I will see you guys Tuesday. Bye.